joining us. Remember, please, after reading the caption of this broadcast, take your time and read the description of the broadcast as well. Like it, share it, invite your friends and your not so friendly friends, your frenemies. Tell all of them that Mayegun today, and then sit back, relax, and enjoy the presentation or the gists. Thank you. This evening, we are starting from Kaduna and the latest from the stable of the terrorist sympathizers, terrorists, apologists, terrorists, forgivers. This time around, it is the former Kaduna Little Finger, El Rufayas S2G, Ubasoni, who staged his own show of shame because there is nowhere else in the world where terrorists are being pardoned. And according to these guys from northern Nigeria, rehabilitated, reabsorbed into the society, all because they professed by holding the Holy Quran to say they have repented from their terrorist ways. Only in Nigeria. There is nowhere else in the world. And according to the wise man, or a wise man once said, there is no repentant terrorist anywhere. The only repentant terrorist is a dead terrorist. Not in Nigeria. In Nigeria, some ragtag criminals, politically backed terrorists, they group themselves in the name of their Allah, that they are fighting for their Allah, and therefore the vulnerable people, the poor people, have been subjected to the lifetime of horror, terrorism. The one that the supposed government arm from northern part of Nigeria should have ordinarily quickly nib in the bud. They decided to politicize it and use it for their own political advantage. The amount of, or the number of people killed by these animals doesn't really count. The amount of lives they've destroyed, the amount of villages or the number of villages that they have ransacked and destroyed, including the economy of northern Nigeria that they have ruined, does not really count to these mofos called the northern governors. Every time that the chance creates or presents itself to go after these terrorists, their emirs, their sultan, which is the Sultan of Sokoto, as well as other emirs, the political class, they will quickly begin their clandestine moves by saying that they want a non-kinetic approach because these guys are just misguided, they're brothers of theirs. It got so bad that not only that they have been draining the resources of Nigeria, a very scarce resources, in the fight against terrorism. The fight against terrorism has become so much like a joke in truest sense of it. A total joke where the terrorist sponsor are also people in government, both in Abuja and in different states of northern Nigeria. So the celebration of a repentant terrorist in Nigeria seems to have become a national pride. It all started during the time of Bukuwari, the Fulani lifeless mannequin from Daura, when they opened the secret door with no law backing it. Despite all the havoc that these criminals have wreaked, Bukuwari's government and the military of that era, they made an arrangement called Operation Safe Corridor. Operation Safe Corridor for terrorists. And over the years, thousands of murderous Fulani terrorists, Boko Haram terrorists were freed back into the society. And this is not just a stain on the supposed the military, who have lost more of their men to these terrorists in the last 10 years alone. I mean, we've had over 15,000 Nigerian soldiers either killed or injured. That means like disabled. Some of them have lost legs, arms, and some, majority, have lost their lives. 15,000 soldiers, either dead or disabled by these terrorists, or the war, the fake war against terrorism. While the political class will quickly put up a show to celebrate the graduating repentant terrorist. Now, you see, the saddest part of this whole thing is that you will think a country or a region that pride itself to have freed over 200,000 repentant terrorists would have had a sort of a success where the terrorism would have become so abated, like it would have probably died down now. Imagine having over 200,000 Allah soldiers surrendered and renounced terrorism by just holding the Quran. Shouldn't that be significant enough to have reduced the terrorism in northern Nigeria and also in the rest of Nigeria? But rather than the terrorism to reduce in northern Nigeria, it has now become an industry, a very massive industry, where terrorists are now controlling territories, where Nigerians from that part of Nigeria have been subjected to the rule or laws of terrorists. We now have areas called ungoverned areas in Nigeria, most especially in northern part of Nigeria, areas where the Nigerian soldiers dare not thread, they dare not go to. In fact, the presence of Nigeria as a country, as a government, as a sovereignty, no longer exists in these areas. Nigerians are subjected to be paying taxes to these terrorists, most of them who are actually not even Nigerians. They are not from Nigeria. But the political class loves it because it gives them a bit of a leverage over the power, the power sharing in that contraption. They have been able to get away with it many times. The governors will tell you that they lack power to protect their people because the military is controlled by the federal government. However, they are the forefront of celebrating or releasing the repentant terrorists back into the society. It is such like, it's more or less like an agenda for them. And to some, an achievement. In Borno State, in Nigeria, half of the state is no longer under Nigeria as we speak. Half of Borno State is controlled by different kind of terrorists, from Boko Haram to ISWAP, ISWAP 1, ISWAP 2, to Lakurawa, to Fulani terrorists, and so many other terrorists that we don't even know their names, operating in that part of Nigeria today. Out of 27 or 28 local government areas in Borno State, only 7 or 8 of them actually exist. The rest, they exist in name. They don't really exist as an entity anymore. And this has been kept away from the rest of Nigeria. If you go to Niger State, where Babangida lives, where Abdul Salami also lives, half of the state is also controlled by terrorists. In fact, it became so, so ridiculous that the state government is making deals, right, with terrorists. Please, we want to harvest, we want to plant this season, or we want to harvest now. Can you give us the permission to? This arrangement exists inside Nigeria as we speak today. If you go to Zamfara State, the story is the same. The terrorists are having field day. If you go to Sokoto, where the Satan of Sokoto lives, these terrorists also control almost half of the state as we speak. If you go to Katsina, Katsina State is where Boko Haram comes from, right? At a point, they had to smuggle him out of Daura. because of the incessant attacks. In fact, when Bokwari was their presidiot in that contraption, the head of Daura, which is like the village head of Daura, got kidnapped. They had to pay ransom to get him freed. So the tolerance for these terrorists in northern Nigeria has kind of put Nigeria on the map as a terrorist country today. And guess what? They are not ashamed of that. So 2 days ago, there was this report from Kaduna. When Kaduna Littlefinger was their governor, Southern Kaduna got so terrorized that it actually became more or less like the APC, Egbekegbe's, one of their manifestos, to bring back the Fulani terrorists that the people, the locals, fought and bled to chase out of their lands. But immediately, in 2015, immediately after El Rufaya became their governor, he went all over West Africa, he went all over Africa, according to him, to bring back these murderous terrorists. And it didn't take long. 6 months after El Rufaya became their governor, Southern Kaduna became a bloodbath zone. It got so bad that they were killing their head. Adara of Adara Kingdom in Southern Kaduna was lured to the Kaduna State Government House in Kaduna for a meeting with the governor. He was there for a day or two, but El Rufaya never saw him. So what happened after? They told him to go back. On his way back to his kingdom, Adara was waylaid. Halfway to his kingdom, he was kidnapped. Adara of the Adara kingdom can be likened to, I'm a Yoruba man, right? Can be likened to the, to the position of the Alaafin of Oyo, the position of the likes of, Awujale of Ijebuland. That's the kind of, that's the level of that king. He got kidnapped. His wife, they raped his wife repeatedly. Then they killed him. When they killed him, they brought his body to the footpaths very close to his kingdom for his people to see him, a first-class royal father. El Rufaya and his gang, they did nothing. Guess what? They started, the Fulani terrorists, they started the attack on his kingdom, and little by little, they were chasing people out of their communities. And most of the communities where people were chased away by these terrorists, they were renamed as caliphates. And up to this moment, the terrorists still operate in Kaduna. So when Mubasani put up his own show, like the Zulum of Borno, who prides himself of freeing 160,000 repentant terrorists in his own state. So, for them in Kaduna, it is a win-win. The terrorists have surrendered. They have repented. There is no repentant terrorist. The only repentant terrorist is a dead terrorist. Maybe not in Nigeria. Let's start from there, from Kaduna.
So a few weeks ago, these people have released over 100 people that they have captured. And they have also, wherever there is anybody among them who feels he can do without them, they dealt with him. They are protecting us, they are protecting themselves.
Speaking to the gathering, Governor Basani highlighted the crucial role of the comprehensive framework in resolving conflicts, noting that the state is developing a robust framework for sustainable peace and security.
This model will include disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration, alongside investment in rural development and conflict resolution. It is a holistic approach that addresses both the symptoms and the root causes of insecurity.
He emphasized
Through
that
numerous
his
meetings and
administration
extensive discussions,
will not take firm action against anyone who refuses to abandon violent activities.
several senior bandits leaders have laid down their arms and embraced peace, along with their followers. Our approach is based on principle of carrot and stick. When we welcome those who choose peace, we will not hesitate to take decisive action against anyone who continues to perpetuate violence.
So a few weeks ago,
This is the problem. Terrorists are never held responsible for all their actions. According to these guys, who we believe are the ones who also armed these terrorists. Once they lay down their weapons, we can throw parties for them. No responsibility. There is no punishment for all they have done. In fact, it is a pride that they have released some of their captives. So let's celebrate for peace. But since they have been doing the repentant terrorist, Operation Safe Corridor, for the past 8 years now, rather than for terrorism to reduce, it keeps growing, escalating, where in some places, they're actually giving them billions of naira in this northern Nigeria. So that governor was on a rise, I think earlier today, and he was asked, how does this actually solve the insecurity? When those who chooses, right, who chose to kind of start killing people, kidnapping people for ransom, are never punished. And the word there is that since they have said they won't do it again, let us just embrace peace. The type of peace that these criminals are foisting on the rest of Nigeria. Listen to his response.
Does it mean that these bandits have totally been forgiven of all their crimes?
No, I'm not talking about forgiving or not forgiving. But of course, as a governor, when you're elected by a people, you listen to what the people want. Like I said, we sat down with the people of Benangwari local government, at the Premier of Benangwari, who have been part of this process. He's someone that have been witnessing this very unfortunate incident in the last 10 years. And he was a person who actually welcomed this development. And as a governor, for me, the most important agenda of our government is protect the lives and properties of all. That is what I said. The approach is not just about forgiving people who are not forgiving.
It's about forgiving them. There's never been any trial of a terrorist in Nigeria since APC, Egbekegbe, came to power in Nigeria. Oh, we used to have them. I mean, the Nigerian police, so Nigerian security agents, they used to arrest some of the masterminds of all this act of terrorism in Nigeria. But it's been a long time you last saw that. Now we have to embrace them. We have to accommodate our killers. We have to get used to them. We must stop being Fulani-phobia. We must stop being terrorist phobia. We shouldn't have phobia for terrorists and murderers. They have gaslighted us, blackmailed us as much as they watched us being kidnapped and slaughtered by these Sahelian terrorists that invaded Nigeria. The Zamfara governor, who is the current guy, Lawal, raised an alarm. He raised an alarm last year. According to him, they put in an effort in Zamfara to go after these terrorists. And then successfully, they apprehended some of them in an operation that was coordinated by the states without the involvement of the federal. And they succeeded. Because according to him, some of these, in quote, bandits, these terrorists, they are known locally in Zamfara. Their parents are known. So when it was time to clamp down on them, they knew exactly where to find them. But immediately they got them picked up. I mean, they had to present them to the judiciary. It was the turn of the judiciary to actually apply the law. What did the judiciary do? They freed them. He granted he actually also accused the current Minister for Defense, State Defense, Bello Patawale. Now, Bello Patawale when ISA pandemic, how do I put this story together for you to really understand the sequence, okay? Before we got to this part, right? When Bokwari was the president, a terrorist sympathizer called Isa Pantami or Isa Pandemic, a well-known, documented terrorist sympathizer, was appointed Minister of Communication. His job was to tap our communication networks, your mobile phone, your text messages, your emails, your voice notes, your WhatsApp. They publicized it. They brought in an equipment that they said was worth over 24 billion naira. 24 billion naira equipment installed to jam your WhatsApp, because WhatsApp was supposed to be an encrypted means of communication, end-to-end encryption. Nobody should be able to hack WhatsApp, but that is your own. They can hack it. They procure a supposed equipment that could jam all communications in Nigeria, just at least to what? To track communications of terrorists. How do you make a terrorist sympathizer the Minister of Communication to monitor communication of Nigerians, including that of the terrorists? Guess what happened? Under these criminals, terrorism kind of gained more foothold. Terrorists will be using the phone number, the phones of their victims that they kidnapped to communicate with the families. But the Nigerian government, the Nigerian Communication Ministry, they are unable to track these people. Sometimes they will leave them for weeks, days, weeks, until the ransom is paid. Meanwhile, in Zamfara State, a state that is led by active terrorists as well. So the governor before Patawale is a minister right now. I can't remember his name right away. Yari, that's his name, Yari. He put together his own terror group so that they could help him chase the people away from some communities where he was mining uranium and other precious minerals in Zamfara, right? And that was his own source of money. So when Bello Patawale became the governor, he wanted his own mine too. So he put together a program. He called it the repentant terrorist as well, something like this. That was when the likes of Bello Turuji, this other guy, something Tafe or whatever his name is called. I'm going to look for that name. It's important. Okay. Yeah, his name is Ya Dotun or something. Sorry. Ado Alero. That's the name. That's the guy that his picture is in that thumbnail for this program on YouTube, right? Ado Alero. Bello Turuji. So that was when he brought them together as repentant terrorists. What he was doing was putting his own group together that would help him secure the communities where they were able to mine gold. To cover it up, he decided to say Zamfara is now producing gold, and he, Patawale, as their governor, will now help them keep the gold in Dubai. Up till now, Zamfara gold, nobody knows what Patawale did with that. So fast forward to last year, when Patawale got defeated by Lawal. So that one now came and said, oh, what I found on ground is so terrible. Can you believe that the governor of this state was actually funding terrorists? And he disguised it as repentant terrorist. This is not me. This was the guy, Lawal, the guy that succeeded Patawale. But rather than for Patawale to be arrested for his crime Tinubu appointed him as Minister of Defense to come and protect me and you from terrorists. The person that is responsible for the insecurity in his own state is appointed as Federal Minister of Defense to protect us from the terrorists they hired. He denied it. He said, oh, I swore by Holy Quran. I was the only governor from northern Nigeria that swore by the Holy Quran that I had nothing to do with terrorism. And that makes him like innocent, like honest. Bello Patawale was buying cars, was giving cash to repentant terrorists. Some of these terrorists